What's up? This is Unhinged, which is basically Koku's idea for us to jump on a podcast and talk about crazy, messy, serious, not so serious topics. I'm Drew, also known as drewbreez. Koku, the legend, right? Like entertainment rumor, gossip journalist / entertainment reporter / all around funny host, commentator,
troll
at times. I mean, I feel like you're being modest because troll like reduces who you are. Like I feel like you are sometimes trolling, always informed. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And I'm not gonna say this is my idea. Don't do that.
What you mean? Gee, come on, like look, like we've been talking about doing something like it, right?
But
like
we haven't
having a conversation, right? Like
we have.
How do we have a conversation about the shit that like that people talk about, but also like we have like a strange depth of knowledge about too. I feel like this is kind of the forum.
Yeah. And like and it's funny because a lot of times too, like some topics are just plain and just straight ahead gossip. But it's funny when you end up talking about them and from an intellectual perspective, it's like, are we overdoing this?
No, but we're not though. We're not, because it's like people need to know the layers of like the Freudian psychology that goes into like these celebrities and athletes especially.
Because we had a basketball conversation the other day that like had me damn near in tears. I was like, damn, this is deep.
Yeah, G. I mean, like,
too deep for this.
I feel like I'm like the biggest undercover KD fan, and you are like the biggest like public KD fan.
I'm the biggest public. I don't care what y'all say about him. You have never, ever seen me say anything bad about KD. Ever.
Yeah, I mean, you will even you'll defend his brushlessness. You know what I'm saying? And like
I don't. If you are so dedicated to your craft that you don't care what anybody says on a public stage, I respect you.
Right.
I don't care about that. I don't care that he's ashy. I'm ashy all the time. I'm ashier than whatever you guys thought about KD. I could scratch my arm right now. Let me show you something. Hey, KD.
I feel like the best of us are ashy sometimes, right? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, sometimes you just gotta get up, get out and get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course you gotta, you have to bathe, but I mean, sometimes like lotion is an afterthought when it's about progress and success and getting things done. Like, I'm not about to sit here and just reach for the Jergens when I gotta make a move.
He got to get 1,000 shots up. He don't got time for lotion and
for all of that.
Every single inch of a 7-foot frame. But like, yeah, I mean, I'm a big KD fan, and like I feel like he catches a lot of flack, and part of why we talk about him is I think KD is relatable, and in a way some of these stars like the one we're going to talk about are not. Like, so if people don't know, can you tell us a little bit about why Brittney Griner is in the headlines and what's happened to her, and I think we could just jump off from there.
Right. So very briefly, Brittney Griner's in the headlines because, well, let's start with this. The WNBA, there's a huge disparity in terms of their compensation versus the NBA. We can get into that conversation. We can get into viewership and support and things like that. But let's just talk about just the base information we have here. Is I believe Brittney Griner makes about probably like a max $225,000 a year when she plays here. Yeah, right. Exactly. When you think about what the boys are making on the other side. That's and wild. She's nice. She's like one of the most decorated players ever. She's super nice.
Yeah.
But so the alternative for women like Brittney Griner who play on that high of a level is to go overseas and play. So when Brittney plays in Russia, she gets $1 million a year.
You get guap.
So you understand why she would go ahead and chase that bag, and that's been fine. The issue here is that what Brittney did was that she entered Russia with like cartridges, like I guess like with a vape and some kind of like marijuana cartridges. But in all honesty, if we're being honest, it was like less than a gram of marijuana. It wasn't like she came in there like on some kingpin, type stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about what you can fit in your carry-on, basically.
Yeah, like just a little something. I mean, something so just insignificant. If she were in the States, it would have, but the thing is she flew in with it as well. So that's the huge problem. So now the question is really, does the penalty match, the strike, is she really a bad person, things like that, and so where do we go from there?
I mean, what I've seen the conversation turn into, which is, first of all, there's all the kind of like fake virtue signaling that people are doing about like why she shouldn't have had like any marijuana. Doesn't she know it's Russia? And it's like, I think we can assume that if Brittney Griner, who was clearly going back and forth to Russia like at least a few times a year, right? Like, I know that she understands Russian law. Like, I don't think there was like an ignorance on her part or like her thinking this is going to be a big deal because like, yo, you're $1 million athlete and just generally thousands of people go from Russia into the United States and back and probably have a vape pen or a little gram of weed, you know what I'm saying? A little dub sack. I feel like the fact that some people are using that as like a hinge of the debate is like a little bit dishonest because it's not about that. It's about like the United States position.
Right.
Against
so
Russia,
so
right?
let me say this then. Let me just say this because I'm actually going to kind of disagree with you. You know, there are laws and things, and you know, they're just the way things are other places. You know, if you go to Singapore and spit gum on the ground, you're gonna get caned.
Right, absolutely.
Like straight up. You know, whereas in New York City, like, you know, you could beat somebody up on the sidewalk and you won't even get a citation. You won't get arrested. Nobody cares.
Right.
It's like, yo, you're in my way. If anything, they'll be like, yo, get out of my way. I'm late to work. But I say all that to say that, you know, to some extent, I think there's a little bit of arrogance here that we're using as United States citizens in terms of, and there's a privilege to being an athlete, a public figure, because she was re-entering the country at a time when they're being told to get the F out. Well ahead of when we would have been told to get the F out. You know what I'm saying? Like if you and I were in Russia at that particular time, we wouldn't have probably even have known to leave more immediately. She was re-entering the country because she had a comfortability there, which she, of course, absolutely should have had, you know. But I say all that to say that even if you normally get away with a thing, it doesn't make that thing right. So that's where I'm coming at it with. So
no, I mean, I feel you on that, but okay, like, all right, here's the like the rub of that part, right? Like, it's like degrees of a thing you can get away with, right?
Right.
So like you use the spitting gum example in Singapore, and like just knowing where you are, like read the room, like know the country, and I feel like Brittney Griner is not just a celebrity here. Like if she is in Russia and playing for their team, because like Russians take basketball like OD seriously. You know what I mean? So it's not like she's going to a place where she's like a minor figure, and the Russian state is like very aware of that too. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the making an example part. So it's not like, I think the privilege is afforded by what she's earned and some of the like agreement, like the implicit agreement between like the Russian state and the Russian, because the basketball team is like owned by the state, for if I'm not incorrect, right? So it's like a state sponsored basketball team, like that's how she gets paid. So it's like they're in this kind of like relationship and agreement with each other too. Like, so it's not like a straight up like, yo, like you got to follow all of our laws. Like they treat her in a special way. You know what I mean? Like I don't think she would have had the understanding like, oh, I could bring this vape if it weren't for that.
No, I agree with you. I think that she was given an expectation, whether that's a privilege or not. Of course, I do believe that. So I don't believe that's again right. I don't want people to say like straight out say like Brittney's stupid or blah blah. There's an expectation. However, the way that I move, and I'm just a civilian. Like it's just certain things that I don't do. She would have had, like if I were Brittney, I don't care what it is. I would have a bag handler. Like I'm not gonna be Brittney with the person that's gonna happen. Like I don't care what it is.
Like don't forget who you are too.
Don't forget, And it's also like with the climate being what it is, it's just, I think Brittney is full aware that she knows that she's just being used as a pawn. None of this is that serious. Russia doesn't give a shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's just like, I would have to accept that there's, let me just say this. I do not believe, and I've been saying this for the whole time, I don't believe Brittney is going to be doing 10 years of hard labor. It's nothing of that sort. I think Brittney will be out by the end of the year.
Of course not.
I think this is just all for show. I think by the end of the year tops, I think she'll be back and running and back on the court. And she does not deserve this. But I don't think that she should pity herself. It's a very terrible lesson, but it's a lesson.
I mean, like she she fucked up. You know what I mean? Like she
Yeah.
definitely like fumbled the bag a little bit on her side, but at the same time, it was like making someone like she's a political prisoner. You know what I mean? Like she,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I think that is the way that Russia's kind of like playing this game with us, which is like, worry, y'all telling us about Ukrainians and shit, but like we know how you treat black people. Like we
Yeah.
literally like fixed your election based on how racist y'all are. So like
Yeah.
if you want an example, we'll make the example, which is kind of how like this whole LeBron situation popped up, right? Like where our social statuses and like how it shakes out in the United States became very apparent based on how long Brittney Griner's been detained.
Yeah. I speaking of LeBron, I was very uncomfortable with the comparison when they said when her was it her coach that said it?
Wait, when what?
When her coach said if it was LeBron, he wouldn't still be here.
It was what I think was a coach. I wonder if it was the coach, her professional coach in the US, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And I was like, that's just not the thing to say either. You know, let's not do that. And that, of course,
why? What's making you say that? Like, I want to understand.
because first of all, again, I mean, and this is not even putting LeBron. Well, LeBron has a very squeaky clean kind of record. You know, he's not the kind of person that'll probably be in that kind of situation in the first place.
Right,
but let's just say that it was LeBron. In my opinion, like if I were, you know, into like nefarious dealings and looking for a political prisoner, I'm not thinking about somebody that's making like, you know, $250,000 stateside. I'm trying to get at the billionaire. LeBron would never get out. What y'all gonna give us for LeBron? So I'm like, y'all acting like LeBron would be like, oh, he'd be out, you know, like, no, he would not. If LeBron was here, and if with the way I would think, if I was, you know, if I was criminal minded, or you know, thinking like that, LeBron wouldn't get out until every single Russian prisoner ever could come back home.
I mean, she's not a high value asset.
That's what I'm saying. In that way, like that's not, people aren't thinking that through when they make that particular statement.
But you know what? I think like it speaks to like how smart the Russian state is. Because like, even though she's not a high value asset, like to them and just in the bigger picture, they know like one, Americans are celebrity obsessed. They know that two, like she'll get the attention of American celebrities and therefore the American public. And so for someone who's not the highest value asset to them, like on a political stateside level, she's still gonna like she's gonna trouble the waters for the stature she is. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that was really smart on their part to be like, all right, well, how can we do something that's not like, it's some Cold War shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like very aggressive, but it makes a statement.
You know, you know, when I look at things like this too, I hate for someone to be in complete fear. I mean, she does not look like she's sick or unfed or unwell or anything like that. But I hate I hate how terrified she must feel. Like that, I don't feel good about that.
So, and I mean, I think LeBron in his like, now I'll say this to start. Like, I'm a huge LeBron stan, but I think he's out of his depth. Trying to comment, because he said the other day that like, you know, if it were him, you know, he would be questioning whether or not he'd come back to the US, which like that's like a big nigga please, because like
I really laughed. I laughed out loud.
Yeah, he's very much like apple pie McDonald's. Like America made LeBron James. Like without America as it is, like he couldn't be who he is, and he absolutely loves his country, and he doesn't even fuck around or toe the line about being somewhat like anti-patriotic. Like he's very much like U.S. flag, like very like not ADOS, but like he's very much like proud of being.
I mean, he is like, he is what a beautiful story. Like the kid from Akron, right? To become what he's become. Like LeBron is the beautiful story of rising above all odds. And then,
you know what I mean? And unlike Steph Curry, he's dark skinned. You know what I'm saying? Like
exactly. I can relate to that.
Yeah, no.
And I'm tall too, LeBron. I just have no hoops. But that's nothing to do with anything.
LeBron has no jump shot either, though. So I think like him as him using his platform. Like I see what you're trying to do, bro. Like I think that was good. Yeah, like bringing the visibility to it. But one of the reasons why I feel like he's ill-equipped to talk about international affairs. Like when he's talking about like homegrown American racism, that's great. Like he's experienced it, he knows it, like that's part of his life, his fabric. But when he starts to get in the mix of like world affairs, like what happened in China, I think that's when he starts to like step on his like I'm a billionaire plan and like
and it's very difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people are often outside of their depth and scope, and they just still feel like they need to talk. And when I know that I'm outside of my depth with certain subjects, I just listen, and I try to remain informed. But I don't speak on things that I don't understand.
But there's a little bit of like restlessness, not being in the playoffs, like kind of like wanting to be in the conversation part of LeBron, and I think that's gonna have him fucked up a little bit because like, you know, even though we celebrate him for not being like Jordan in terms of Republicans buy sneakers too, I think
just being super silent. Like Jordan never had anything to say about anything. Like he could be chopping babies' heads off. Jordan would say nothing. Yeah.
Right. He didn't. But LeBron, like when it came to the China shit, he was like, actually, you know, maybe I shouldn't speak up about this because Nike does however many hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue off my sneaker, off my name. And when that became an issue, which was like, you know, whether people could have a democratic republic in China, he was like, I'm going to say that Chinese people buy sneakers too. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm not going to really go into that issue, which, you know, people try to call him out on. And like, it's fair, honestly. It's like one of those things where like, that's why I sent you that clip of Styles P intervening in that arrest. Because it's like, once you do something like that as a celebrity, where do you draw the line? You know what I mean? Like, how do you then like walk it back and be like, well, actually, I don't know if that was that racist or that was that sexist or that was that. Like, it's very hard when you yourself are a person who benefits from privilege.
You have to acknowledge it though, and I feel like a lot of times LeBron and other people sometimes tune out, and it's not. I don't think they're being intentional. They literally live in a bubble. So a lot of times with people like that too, like their information does not. It's not like homegrown, like they're just walking to the store and grabbing the paper, or like really going on the internet.
Right.
Like someone's feeding them. They're having a meeting where somebody's like literally seven people at the table telling you the topics of the day or whatever. So it's just it is a totally different type of existence. So they don't know the world they don't know the world how we know it.
I mean,
so
like
I don't expect the same.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. Like they have a whole social media team. I mean, like Savannah gets the good surgeries. You know what I mean? Like Savannah and like Angela Bassett. You know what I'm saying? Jennifer Aniston.
Beautiful.
They get the like the little tweaks. Like just little.
They're not
subtle
walking
moves.
around.
Agent backwards. Crazy. Nah, I mean they don't do anything. That's to say they don't do anything that's not calculated. That's not very intentional. And
that is correct.
So I feel like even his walking it back in the Brittney situation was like, oh, maybe
I mean, that was probably a chain of emails where there were teams. Yes. There might have been 50 people that arrived at what he needed to tweet.
Yes.
Have you ever been part of like a corporate Twitter team? Literally, each tweet, there could be a meeting about a tweet. And it's just the craziest thing.
Yo, I mean, and remember when Black Lives Mattered?
Yes.
So like
when they mattered.
so like I was working for like a big streamer for an agency that was like assigned to a big streamer's like social channels. And when Black Lives Mattered, that streaming service decided to go dark because they were like, yo, we don't want to get in trouble. They were like, yo, we don't know what to tweet next, but like we know it can't be like promo for Stranger Things, you know what I'm saying? Like, so they were like very like skittish, and then they put out like a bulletin to all the like agencies, all the internal marketing and creative teams, and they were like, yo, we're gonna go dark, like we're gonna plan. But then, you know, even me, who was kind of like an outside contractor through an agency, you know, I'm getting looped in on, like you said, like 10, 20, 50 people on an email chain trying to figure out, what's crazy because it of course ends up trickling down to Black employees. Like, so what do you guys think? What do y'all think we should say?
And it may not even be somebody that even works in that particular channel. And it's like, it's that one person that goes, well, all y'all got to do is say this. And it's like,
No, that's exactly what it is. And I feel like with Bron, like it's it's a very planned and coordinated effort when you become a billionaire. Like it's not like those things don't happen by accident. Like a lot of people have like vested interest in you too and like what you say. So I think in that case, he was probably like, I'm fucking the money up. Like if I say too much about how the United States is this or that, or like what we're doing or not doing, that fucks me up in several areas. And he's like, I think if it was a very like clean situation, like if it was like a Sue Bird, you know what I mean? Or like a Elena Deladon, and they just held her without the vape cartridge shit and without some of the other shit. I think he realized and his team realized like, yo, this is crazy polarizing. This is a lesbian Black woman who smokes weed. Like, let's not die on this hill. You know what I mean?
But I want to get back to what you were saying earlier. You brought the Styles P and the women. And his intervention. I mean, he just intervened as a man. He didn't intervene as a celebrity.
That's very true.
That's something that he just decided to do impulsively in the moment. He just like, this is not right. Now, there's a couple things. Now that comes on the heels of that woman in the bodega, remember? That went and like sicked her boyfriend on the guy uptown, right? And so when the guy comes to the bodega employee defends himself. Now, New York, we got some real murky, weird laws about self-defense. So, I mean, the guy was facing like first-degree murder at some point. Right. But they ended up reducing that. But there's another story that's out too now, though, where there's a man where a couple was fighting at a gas station. And the man intervenes. This is like about a couple days ago. He intervenes to try to help the woman. And the boyfriend that she's with shoots the man. The woman hops in the car with the boyfriend and they drive off into the
and they out like because it's like I
don't know that nigga.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is the world we live in.
Right. And like okay, so what do you do? Like, because obviously I haven't been in New York for years. Like, I'm definitely on the mind my business team because of shit like that. But like, I know people go on social media and cap about defend Black women and pay Black women and all that shit. And all that shit is dope. Like that's super dope. Like defend Black women, listen to Black women always. But like then in those situations, like how hashtag defend Black women are you?
I think, you have to just go with your gut and go what speaks to your heart in the moment. Now, if I see a couple fighting in a subway or something like that, I'm a woman, so there's no expectation that I would do anything anyway. So I guess I'm a little bit off the hook. But if I saw a couple fighting, I guess it would just seem like to the degree, like maybe I could kind of signal to the side, like, sis, you okay? Like,
but like, okay, you're a woman, which is fair, but like, you look like you could fight. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it depends on the situation. Like, I've maced strangers, I've thrown things at people. It's this all kinds of. This is not what this conversation is about. You know what I'm saying? I'm generally speaking. I'm not. Okay. I'm just saying it just depends on the situation. Like I would fight somebody if you were trying to aggress me, and whether I know somebody or not. If you aggress me, I'm a very, very calm person until I'm not. So once somebody tries to put their hands on me, that's not even a conversation. That's just something else, but I'm not trying to glorify that. But all I'm saying is that, the degree to which I would intervene in a stranger conflict, it just depends on what I'm looking at and what it looks like to me. But what I would probably do is I might, like, if it looks like something that I can't handle, I might look at the dudes around me like, yo, y'all not gonna say something? Like, y'all not gonna do nothing? Then now everybody's fighting.
First of all, it's a social media era too. So like people are quicker to pull out their phones during a conflict like that and like show the unfairness rather than even intervene.
I'm a fan of nonviolent pain. So what I'm saying is this: I keep a full can of mace on me at all times. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people can escalate.
Wait, explain how mace is nonviolent, because I'd love to hear that one.
I mean, I'm not. It's not permanent.
Okay.
I don't consider that violence. I just consider it a tool.
Right.
To kind of stave off the threat.
Right, like temporary.
Maybe in temporary pain. Yeah. So if somebody is stung if you mace somebody while they are like hitting a woman, that gets her a moment to just run off. He doesn't even know what's going on. But then of course, like I said, then you absorb that person's issue because now you are an aggressor as well. What are you ready to do in a situation like that if it doesn't, if the person turns on you? And that girl done ran away or ran into the car waiting on him to get,
Exactly, right? Because like I think one of the problems that brings up is like, if you see a conflict that's verbal, right? Which is like, because the Styles P situation, actually why I respect him intervening there is because it had become physical, right? Like somebody got violated, and it's like an abuse of power is happening. Officers, when they detain or arrest someone, they don't have to get physical, especially when they have them cuffed, right? Like, so it's like you don't have the same power that you do as if when your hands are free, right? So slamming to the ground and knee in the back and all that shit, it's very George Floyd-ish, So I can understand why he was activated, why Styles P was like, all right, I need to get in here because something is imbalanced here, right? But with the verbal altercation, especially like growing up in New York, like the kind of crazy shit you might hear just generally between two people arguing on the street for any reason. Like, 2-3 nights ago in front of my crib, there's a woman who lives next door, right? And she is like, she's probably a little taller than you, right? Probably like around the 6'1" level. And she was what I would call like a mask presenting woman who has a girlfriend who lives with her. Sometimes they have little conflicts, little scuffles. I guess the girlfriend's brother was there, and like he intervened in one of their conflicts, their spats. And I'm watching all this shit through the window, and the brother actually breaks the bigger woman's windshield during this conflict, right? And I was like, okay, so this is about to, and she's like scrappy, like WWE level size. Like she could toss the brother was no more than like 5'6", 5'7". So she could have definitely
this might be a fair one.
Right. It could. Okay. I mean, it wouldn't be a fair one for him. I'll tell you that. Like, you remember that social media video where the lady's in like the cafeteria and she picks up the table and she starts swinging that shit?
Yes,
like, she's a table lifter. You know what I mean? Like, she's that size. You know, so it wouldn't have looked nice for him if she grabbed him up. But he broke the windshield, like he violated, and now it's like, oh, this is gonna escalate to violence. And I was like, I'm happy I'm inside. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't even want to be responsible for the reactions of what a man's supposed to do. It's like, nah, whatever you think I'm supposed to do in that situation, I look at the heavyweight champ over there and I'm not fucking with that. Like, that's not me. That's not for me. That's not a battle that I'm meant to fight. But that's the kind of like tricky situation that we're in too, like where even I would say specifically men, like men and Black men, we can be in situations where, yeah, I know ideally it seems like I should be the person to intervene here, but I'm not getting tossed. You know, I'm not getting kneed in the back on the ground by the police either. Like, that's not something that I'm going to make a choice to do to be like heroic. But I'm also not going to like cry it out on social media. Like, yo, you should have done this. You should have done that.
I've never say that. And also the other thing that people have to think about is a lot of times, let's just say that the police end up on the scene because someone else is looking out the window. Yes. They don't know who the aggressor is. So at this point, you might end up on lockup because you tried to help somebody. You don't even know these people's names. And they're not going to sit here and tell the details and be like, oh, well, he don't know us and he was trying to help. Or even if they do, it doesn't matter. Maybe they're lying. So now you got yourself embroiled and entangled in something that ain't got nothing to do with you on a whole nother level. And it might cost you money.
Right. Over a hashtag, you know what I'm saying? And like, I'm not going to I think there's definitely a limit to what you could physically do to back up certain principles and certain, like, I think like you brought up, like situational awareness. Like, I think New Yorkers have like a rare amount of situational awareness too, where we've seen enough unlikely scenarios to be like, okay, I'm not fucking with that. Like, I know that this person who doesn't look like they could scrap because they drunk is actually about to deliver a knockout blow. Like, we have seen the most unlikely of David Goliath things throughout our lives. So we're like, it's not on me to referee this shit and decide, oh, this person is the weaker person in that situation, because you'll quickly find out on your own jaw who's the weaker person or not, So I
think it's something else worth communicating is, I've been in situations where somebody did, let's say, violate me in a way where it's like I could have been like, yo, let me call the bro up. Like I could make a phone call real quick, and then somebody will spin the block and escalate it on a whole nother level just because I said that. And I'm willing to take my own personal L because I'm like, you know what? Even though this person is a loser, it's none of this is worth what the outcome could be because now I'm putting someone else in a very, very bad situation that could even mean that their freedom could be compromised because I'm just upset because of
wait, so Koku, you call the goons? You call the goons out on people?
I don't call the goons. I don't even do that.
You rarely pull that card, but you can.
Now see, what I might do is I might call some little kids. You'll get beat up by some 16-year-olds. I might do that. I'll get my little young boys.
Oh, that's very like, Steven Jackson vibes.
Like,
that's
handle my life. Yeah,
very Steven Jackson.
I'm Steven Jackson of O Block. Call the children. Get some psychopathic drill children on the job. You know, like handle my life. I don't want no pistols out, nothing like that. Just rough them up a little bit.
Just a little Chirac warfare.
Person, yeah. Just make sure that the person, when you if you're 32, 33, 34, 35 years old, you get beat up by 16 years old. That's something that you got to think about. Like
that's humbling. You know what I'm saying? That's
like you got.
Yeah, you got to reset after that.
You got to ruminate over that. Like, damn, what am I going through?
Yo, I'm actually really like, okay, this is a great segue, but also like a great question when I think about Stack and like Steven Jackson. Like, did he potentially become like more of a hood hero in his All the Smoke podcast days? Because like it feels like now Steven Jackson's always had cred, right? Like he's always had cred.
And listen, Steve is ready to rumble. Like we cannot take that away from him. Like, yo, he's shown us he's about that life.
Yes. But is there a limit to like holding on to your hood credibility? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of it raises the question in this case.
That's a good question.
Right? Because I feel like where was he again? Like why was he there? You know what I mean? Like Steven Jackson has a personal chef. You know what I mean? Like Steven Jackson has like a 5-figure mortgage. You know what I'm saying?
He was on O Block in Chicago, one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago. Like
risking it all.
You will not find. There are people that are from that neighborhood that will not return to that neighborhood. That's like the home of like Lil Durk, King Von, people like that. There's a King Von mural there. I know people in Chicago, from Chicago, of Chicago, that do not go by that mural trying to take pictures.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you in like, and I live in the hood, but I'm like, if we go in places where murals, people who got assassinated and shit, and like you are already delivered into suburban cul-de-sac life. Like, what's making you go? You know, like what is the cost of that? What do you think you're getting?
Decorated with your chains and everything, and you're like twice as tall as everybody else. Like, to me, that's just, and I love Stack. Don't get me wrong, but that's not it's not an entertaining look.
Nah, yeah, that's also like it makes you, like you said, it makes you a target. The fact that you're so thirsty for that cred or like to keep that position, that's gonna make real killers and real like hungry wolves look at you like, oh, okay, that's what you want. I'm gonna give you that. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think Stack wants that.
I don't think so. I mean, anybody you've ever known that really has gotten money and that's from the hood, but has reached a certain level, they don't just be on the block. You do not see that like that. Yeah,
Stack has a nutritionist. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop that. He's getting.
I'm pretty sure. Just like you say, personal chef, like you said, nutritionist, personal trainers, like all kinds.
He got a shopper. You think them chains? You think he copped them chains? No, he has a shopper. You know what I'm saying?
You think he actually waits in line for sneakers?
Never. He has ship. He gets swag bags just from his podcast and the sponsorships on that. Like, he hasn't worn clothes that he's bought in years. So like,
the more money you get, the more they give you.
Yeah, don't take that into the den. Don't take that into the den with the wolves. Yeah, there was some time when Stack specifically talked about, like, I think he talked about, it was either KD. It was one of those, like, KD went to the Warrior, like, not tough enough, like that kind of narrative thing that they do, that the old school players do. And also,
they get really upset, because of the
they get worked up, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like, I don't know, I think it's a real like straw man argument when they do that, especially guys like Stack. It always be those dudes. Like it always is like the guys who are not at the very top, who had almost nothing to compare to the people who they're criticizing. Which is, I take a huge issue.
But you have to also I'm just trying to play both sides here, but you also have to appreciate that the commentary is coming from somebody that understands the league and that played the game.
For sure. I mean, but to an extent, right? Like, I mean, like, you understand what it's like to be the guy and open for the corner three because you're not important. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're that person, but you can't, like, that makes you not able to comment on the guy who will get crushed in the media for not taking that three that he passed to you because you're open in the corner. You know what I mean? Like, that is kind of where I feel like there's a huge gap, like with the exception of Barkley. Barkley is probably the only one very like publicly and openly who occupied that position of like the top, and then also criticizes guys in that top position. It's sort of fair, but I don't know. I also feel like Barkley would not have been in the physical condition to play in this current league.
I mean, which is exactly what we were kind of talking about just earlier. Like, there's a lot of talk right now. Like, suddenly there's this conversation around like who could or should have been able to play in this current league.
Right.
Who would have really been able to hack it.
Right. Like Rasheed Wallace would have been like first team all NBA apparently.
Exactly. Who was that said? I mean, listen. Do you disagree?
We can. I mean, like, Andre Iguodala, where I've love for Andre Iguodala. I think he's a talented player, but
his thing, I guess, where his hot take, where it got to people started like, where they started shouting and back and forth, was that he said that he thinks he would be nicer than Giannis.
Yeah, and like, no, he wouldn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, he would not. Like, I watched Rasheed Wallace play. I loved his game. I think he paved the way for guys like Anthony Davis. I feel like he was the prototype of his game makes Giannis possible, but also like that he made him possible. You know what I mean? Like Giannis is better. It is a step forward. It's not like she for all his game, like, he was never going to be an MVP. He was never going to be a finals MVP. He was on that Pistons team that won. And like, that's not how history remembers it. Like, oh, Rasheed Wallace dominant. Like they rode him on his back 50 points for the series. Like, that was not happening, bro. Like, and that was recent, you know what I mean? And he could have done that if he were that kind of player, but he's not. And so to say that, like, I feel like lionizing the old school is really dumb, you know what I mean? Because it's like things do develop on the basis of what came before it. So like sometimes what came before it is like kind of primitive, or it's, you know what I mean?
I think that, and that's kind of a life lesson I try to tell people often too. A lot of times people, and before we get back to that conversation, people get really hung up on like, well, I was the first person to do this. I was the first, and then y'all got this from me. I was the first. I mean, like, it's really nice to lay a foundation. Like, that's nice. But sometimes people really do, things progress and they can go beyond whatever it is that you do, like, so people have to understand that, we're coming from a time when, prior to podcasts, there were blogs, there were things like that. So now you can't just be like, well, I was the first person with a blog. I mean, that's nice, but people today don't. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, people know that you're a pioneer, right. But the people today and the here and now may not know who you are if that's not what you're doing. If you didn't progress with and change with the movement or with the time.
But I mean,
obviously there's a sort of a sports shelf life. That's a different kind of topic, but
right. And I mean, you had sent me the clip of Ray Allen talking about he was like, he was schooling, he was doing the kind of like finger wagging about LeBron being
about LeBron, yeah.
About like kind of like breaking down to some kids why he's not the GOAT. What was his actual argument though about why LeBron was not the GOAT?
Well, I mean, he was coming at I have to look at, I don't want to misquote him. Hold on a second. Because he was saying like, oh, can he shoot a three? No. Can he do free throws? No.
Is he the best? I think that the framework he uses, is he the best?
The framework was like, is he the best ever? Like, is he the best ever do it?
Right.
And I think that like the way the approach to the argument was so reductive. Like you're kind of just saying things like, you're being very black and white here about how you're doing it. And I'm just like, listen, I like watching. I can watch anybody's highlights, whether they're good or bad, because there's either comedy in it or inspiration. So I'll watch a lot of highlights, and I'm just like, how can anybody talk about LeBron like that? And fundamentally, I'm not even supposed to be somebody that likes LeBron on the court. I love LeBron off the court. Everything he stands for makes so much sense. He's never playing for who I need him to play for. So I've never, But I think that's just so absolutely disrespectful that he did that. And I just didn't know where that was coming from.
But like, this is like par for the course with Ray Allen. Like Ray Allen is like an OD dickhead. Like he's always stood on being a dickhead to anyone who wants to ask him about like his routines. First of all, Ray Allen is like a secret Republican. Like, let's just put that out there. Like he's been a Republican for mad long. He's like wild conservative. But also like he was a dickhead even to his like championship teammates, to the point where they don't fuck with him at all. Like, and we're talking about Kevin Garnett is also an OG dickhead. So like Kevin Garnett not fucking with you, and Kevin Garnett, I would say, is beloved, but despite the fact and because he's a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like he's openly like, I'm gonna be an asshole to you, and like my personality on the court. He is the epitome of like got that dog in him. Like that's Kevin Garnett,
that kind of person. Yes.
Whereas like Ray Allen was like OCD, like I'm gonna make sure I get to the practice facility before everyone, so I get the best parking spot, and like literally will have battles with people where he's showing up at like 4 a.m. to make sure that they know he's getting that parking spot. And like he does that. He's obsessive compulsive. He's one of those like need to be right type people.
Oh my God.
Like, but also like what you said about that argument, like, first of all, to lay out that to be the best player, you need to do each individual thing the best. It's like, it's never been true of any player who was considered
of any player. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, so like Jordan wasn't the best 3-point shooter, right? He had like 8 seasons where he shot under 30%. And people were like, well, the game wasn't like that. But it's like, don't shoot under 30%, So like that regardless of whether you where you fall on the Jordan debate, like I also think Jordan's an OG dickhead. That's part of the reason I'm not like a huge Michael Jordan fan off the court.
It's really interesting too, because we've been speaking to Jordan. We're talking about like this tremendous burden that we put on LeBron to say something at all times. That at the time that I think that if we're talking about the kind of person that Michael Jordan is, a lot of people would not like Michael Jordan if he were playing now. Like he would be like a villain, like a supervillain.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So, he literally does not speak to any issue that's going on. Never even spoke to issues when his sneakers when it was to the point when, like, listen, when we were kids, and people were getting their sneakers snatched off their feet.
Yeah. And also to that point, like about why this era is different is like, Michael Jordan was a bully, you know what I'm saying? Like we have like anti-bullying society right now.
Yes,
and like he was a real bully, and like his teammates, he bullied his teammates.
But you see how even like when they try to speak with some type of grace or like with some sort of measure, even you could tell like I don't even want to say nothing nice about this man. This motherfucker is just you could tell they want to say something.
Oh yeah, for real.
Even somebody as nice as like Steve Kerr, it's just looking like, it's like you could tell he's a nice guy.
Yeah. Steve Kerr is like, he's like sensitive and like aware and compassionate.
Yes.
And when he's asked about Michael Jordan, he's like, well, he can be prickly. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, yo, why is he holding back so much? Yeah, like he's definitely a strong personality. Like this is what you talk about, the dude you won like however many championships with, and like he had his issues. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like
some
very
some people are really just nice, and I don't take anything away from that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd rather somebody be that way than just be this caustic, like dramatic person. Picking up drama everywhere. because some certain things, like, you don't have to prove them. You can, they're laid out in front of you. So
do you think that because of what Mike laid out is part of why KD struggles so much with like being popular and like the kind of the standard, the criteria for being the best or, you know, one of the greatest? Do you think that's partly because of what Jordan did?
well, that's kind of interesting because I think that when people look at KD, like, they want to look at KD and view him in the same light that they look at LeBron, right? Like you want to feel the same way about KD's, even his decisions and things like that. And, you know, there's just a time where, like, and it's kind of the thing, like when LeBron, remember when he left and he was doing the decision and he became this, again, they became the villain, and then people didn't like him anymore. And it was weird because it's like, you know, everybody loves LeBron, and all of a sudden nobody loves LeBron anymore.
Right.
And then, you know, when KD went out west and got the rings, then everybody hates KD now all of a sudden. And then when he went to Brooklyn, and, you know, I mean, it's like, I'm making an excuse right now. I am making an excuse, but like, yeah, I know. I just have to say this, like, you know, COVID was a very strange time. And I mean, I think there was a lot of uncertainty. So there are certain things that were completely out of his control. But what I see as a person, I'm just generally speaking, I just see a person that is so into the game of basketball that he doesn't really care what other people think in that sense, in terms of like when he's into his game, but he does seem extremebly sensitive as far as what other people think. So I'm particularly sensitive about people like that. Like, you're attacking somebody that's not attacking you. They just want to be the best at it. So it's like, how can, you know, like, I can't imagine what that's like for people to recognize that you're so good at something, but then they're attacking things that just have nothing to do with what's actually happening on the court. So, or they're making you responsible.
I blame Jordan for that.
So you do blame Jordan for that?
Yeah, I mean, I partly blame LeBron too. I think the one torch that LeBron took from Michael Jordan was to be a master media manipulator, like to be like myth maker, a creator of his own narrative, like in ways that were unhealthy, that were like megalomaniacal, and that also were like create a very unrealistic, like, just arena for sports to be in. And so like, I definitely blame LeBron and Jordan for that a lot. Like, cause like, for whatever you could say about Kobe, is like, Kobe really didn't give a fuck. Like, he will let you know how he felt about you, about the media. Like, he did not give a fuck. He was careful, he was smart, but he wasn't trying to be like savvy in the way that LeBron and Jordan still have a war right now going on about making their own myths. You know what I'm saying? So that they have been so much in that arena that, like, even though to me, KD is comparable to Jordan in the sense of the craft, like the craft of what he does, they are equally as good in those areas of like, there's no holes in what he, like, he's very, very good, very excellent at every aspect of the thing that he does, right? And maybe in a way that like LeBron isn't excellent. I don't think he's excellent at basketball in every aspect of it in the way that KD is, but I think because it became less over time about that excellence and more about how like you purvey that to the larger public, that it kind of left people like KD at a loss. Because like, I could kind of see KD trying to build his own media thing and like, but he's just not, I don't think that's his strength.
Maybe he's not into it, or maybe even to say strength, maybe he's just not into it. Like,
but he does have a media company too, like, which is weird.
Yeah, but even then, you could have a media company and take on more of an executive producer role. Or I understand being somewhat like, you know, I understand his podcast and things like that. But maybe KD doesn't want to be like Space Jams and like, you know, just doing all these commercials. Like, it's not for him. But there's this duty that we place upon people like that, where we want them to be like that. Whereas, interestingly enough, this is a random example, but just somebody like Giannis loves to be in front and center. Like, this guy, you know, is like going through Chick-fil-A drive-thrus and like, yay, America, I love it, funnel cakes. You know, I'm at the Milwaukee State Fair. You know,
annoying though. Like, I say this as an immigrant, like, that's some annoying immigrant shit that he's doing. Like, he's trying to be like the acceptable immigrant, and that's like wild annoying. And I can tell that's
how you take it.
Players do not fuck with him on that level. Like, you realize, like, when Giannis was like winning all his awards, that like no NBA player was like, yo, congratulations, like, Giannis, like every other NBA player, when they won big awards, they'd be like, yo, what's up, my man James Harden 13? And like they tweet about it. When Giannis won that and the finals MVP, crickets. Like they did not care. And I feel like he definitely does this, like, yeah, it's a pick me, you know what I mean? Like he's like an immigrant pick me. Like, and that's wildly annoying of him. And like having a Disney movie doesn't, it adds to that, I would say.
Yeah. But I mean, when you bring up the immigrant point, I mean, Giannis could be the kind of person where it's too, like, a lot of times immigrants can be kind of insular. And like they, he might be at home, like he probably speaks Greek more than he speaks English, home full time with his crew, his family. He probably don't even mess with them like that either.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious, yo. Like
that's what sometimes it could be like that.
I would say, like, getting back to the point about like KD and like what standards he's held to. What's crazy about that, like knowing that he's not a media guy, he's not about the myth making, he's all about the court.
I don't get that from him. No,
not at all. But then why pair with Kyrie Irving? Like, because Kyrie Irving was Uncle Drew. He literally came in with like not only the weird flat earth attitude and shit, but he came in like very much invested in celebrity and personal image.
But that doesn't mean, it could be a yin yang kind of thing. We have friends that are extremely extroverted, friends that are extremely introverted. I mean, at the end of the day, like no one can take anything away from Kyrie's game,
No, best dribbler, finisher. Probably he could be in that Ray Allen argument in that the most skilled.
Yes. And it's funny because in a way, like it's almost like Kyrie is the embodiment of the trolling I like to do in real life, because it's like the frustration that people must feel knowing that this person has the fullest potential to do something, and they're just like, well, not on your terms, they're on mine. So I actually understand Kyrie a lot more than I think that than people would like.
You need to explain him to me. That like, so what's going on with him right now? Does he really want to be a Laker? What's happening with Kyrie? If you are inside the mind of Kyrie, what are you trying to accomplish right now in terms of?
I think if I was inside, because just in the same way we can talk about like how LeBron will form teams that make sense to him, and LeBron is loyal to himself, and I actually. Yes. As I understand it now, I get it now. It was I've had a very, very different understanding before. I'm like, why wouldn't somebody want to be, let's say, a Steph Curry? You know what I'm saying? But LeBron is very, very loyal to himself, and I respect it if you can deliver. I totally respect it. And if the delivery can be proven that you had something to do with it, right? So when I think about a Kyrie, I think his wiring is different in that way. I think Kyrie just needs to be comfortable. Thanks for checking out the Unhinged podcast with Koku Puff and Drew Breez. If you like what you see, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell.